Hello YouTube, my name is Nero, and today we have some Call of Duty Infinite Warfare. 2 straight Infinite Warfare videos here on my YouTube channel. It feels weird, man. I have not done this since the Infinite Warfare beta. Think about that. It's been a very long time, but I played some more Infinite Warfare this afternoon to try to familiarize myself with the game a little bit more, because it's difficult to make videos on a game that you don't play, right? It's difficult to, try to be knowledgeable on something you have no idea what you're talking about in, right? So of course I want to play the game a little bit more, try to get a better feel for the game. If you caught my last video, it was my return to Infinite Warfare. Now I'm not here to say that my channel is going to become 100% Infinite Warfare. I don't even really have any immediate plans to make Infinite Warfare videos or anything like that, right? I still plan to primarily post Modern Warfare Remastered, but I decided to go back and play Infinite Warfare yesterday because it's been like, what, 4 months or so since the game actually came out, and I'm interested to see what the game is like now, what all has changed, how different is the game now compared to back in November and back during the beta. It would sound interesting to me, so I went back and I tried it, and I gave you guys my first impressions, my thoughts and feelings, and in that video, I said to you guys that I could probably do an entirely separate video just talking about weapon variants here in Infinite Warfare, and that is what we're going to do in today's video. We are going to talk about weapon variants. So before we go any further and discuss my personal opinion, we must first understand why weapon variants are in the game, and more importantly, how weapon variants work within this game. So here in Infinite Warfare, right, this is all pretty much common knowledge, but for those of you guys that don't know, there are several tiers of rarity here in Infinite Warfare. You have your common variants, your rares, your legendaries, and your epic. Epic, of course, being the best, common, of course, being the worst. Just because a weapon is higher up on the rarity scale, that doesn't actually necessarily mean that it's better than the rest of the variants available. Like, for example, the legendary NV4 Fallout is much less powerful than the rare NV4 Vigilance, right? Because the Vigilance, if you're just looking at the perks you get here, you're going to benefit much more from the Vigilance perks as compared to the Fallout perks, right? Because the Fallout perk, the nuke is nice, right? It's fun to try and go for a nuke, but most of the time, that's not actually giving you a benefit. Most of the time, in most situations, you're only getting a benefit of reduced recoil when you're actually using the NV4 Fallout. So in that case, the NV4 Vigilance is actually much better, right? So that's just one example. There are plenty of other examples I could give you. But on the other end of the spectrum, there are certainly some epic and legendary variants that are just above and beyond better than the lower tier variants. Some examples of this would be the K-Bar Horde is much better than the K-Bar Haste. It just is. I mean, just look at the perks that you get. The K-Bar Horde is much better. The RPR Evo modular variant is much better than the Cheap Shot variant. It just is. And the Mauler Mammoth is much better than the Mauler Grizzly. The list goes on. And people try to defend to me that weapon variants are not that big of a deal here in Infinite Warfare, that epic and legendaries aren't that big of a deal compared to commons and rares. They're not that big of an advantage. And to be fair, they have a bit of a point, honestly, because the disparity between the high-end variants and the low-end variants here in Infinite Warfare is not nearly as bad as what was like back in Advanced Warfare, but there's still a disparity there, right? The higher tier variants are still better than the lower tier variants. That's just the very nature of it. And if you just started playing the game and you want to pick the RPR Evo, for example, that's one of my favorite guns in Infinite Warfare. It's kind of like the Ripper in a way. It's an SMG that goes back and forth between SMG and assault rifle mode. It's very fun. It's kind of like the Ripper back in Call of Duty Ghosts. If you just start playing the game and all you have is the regular RPR Evo SMG, and I have the Ripper variant of the RPR Evo, I'm going to win that gunfight most of the time because the Ripper in SMG mode is better than the RPR Evo in SMG mode. It just is. It shoots faster. It's a better weapon, right? So that's just the very nature of the game. That's the very nature of variants. And of course, there's also other variants that do very fun and interesting things. Like you have the R3K or the Wreck, right? You can get an epic variant that will actually turn that rifle from a burst rifle into a full auto rifle, which is really cool. There's a variant of the Type 2 that takes the akimbo mode and makes it so you have akimbo shotguns. To my understanding, it's not very good, but still, you have really cool akimbo shotguns. And on the smaller side of things, most of the variants in the game are going to reduce idle sway, they're going to reduce recoil, they're going to increase fire rate, sometimes decrease fire rate, they're going to increase damage range. They have all kinds of little benefits here and there that are usually reserved for attachments. So essentially, even if it's a lower tier variant, it's basically like having a free attachment on your weapon. If you're using a variant that reduces recoil, Well, now you don't have to use grip. Now you basically get a free extra attachment. Like, so even like the smallest variants, they're still better than the base weapons themselves. That's just the very nature of things. And I don't see how people could argue that having good variants is not an advantage over players who either A, don't have a lot of variants, or B, don't have variants whatsoever. It's common sense. These weapons are objectively better. So why are there variants even in this game? Why did they make this system that rewards people for either spending money or playing a lot? Well, I just answered my own question. They want you to spend money and play the game a lot. We've talked about it in the past. Activision's business model is set in place to try and keep you invested in their games, because the more invested you are and the more time you spend playing, the more money you are likely to spend on current and future content. It's honestly brilliant if you really think about it, because what they've done here is they have added weapons to the game that will change your power, right? Some changes are big and noticeable and others are smaller in scale, but they do increase your power in one way or another, and Activision understands that players are more likely to spend money and spend time to give themselves an increase in power and an advantage over other players. It used to just be in Call of Duty where you would just spend a bunch of time playing the game and learning the game, and you would just do better than other players, right? And that's still true here in Infinite Warfare. It was true back in Advanced Warfare, but what we have now is a system in place where you can spend a lot of time learning the game and getting good at the game, but also make yourself even more powerful than your opponents by having better weapons than what they actually have, right? It's a very smart business model on their end, because they know that people are going to go ahead and want to sign in every single day and play the game because they want to become a more powerful player while they're playing Call of Duty. Activision learned long ago that map packs, camos, and season passes, they aren't really enough anymore to entice players to stick around for the long haul. These days, there are so many great games out, especially in 2016. Like, that was the year of the shooter. You have Battlefield, you have Destiny, you have Overwatch, you have Doom, you have all these games that basically came out all in one year, all competing within the same market. Titanfall, no less, right? You have all these games, and they know that they need to try their best to keep people playing Call of Duty. Otherwise, they're just going to bug off and go play a different game, right? They're going to go play a different game and spend their money elsewhere. So they need to find a way to keep people invested in their game, and they have done that by adding weapon variants to the game, which you can work towards and earn just by playing, by investing time, or simply take a shortcut by spending money and buying supply drops and getting all the salvage you need to be able to craft up your weapons. So with that out of the way, what are my thoughts on Call of Duty Infinite Warfare, and what are my thoughts on its weapon variants? I'm not the biggest fan of this system, to be honest, because any system in place that makes it so somebody has an advantage over me simply because they've invested more time or money, I'm not a big fan of that, right? But at the same time, it is definitely a lot more fair than what we had back in Advanced Warfare. For starters, we can actually craft our variants with the in-game currency that we acquire just by playing. It's not 110% random. I mean, it's still very random. We're talking about supply drops here, but you can actually craft your weapons, right? Whereas back in Advanced Warfare, you could not. And in Advanced Warfare, I would definitely say that the weapon variants were much more powerful. I mean, need I remind you guys of the ASM-1 Speakeasy, the HBR-A3 Insanity, the BAL-27 Obsidian Steed? These were all incredibly powerful. The system that they have in place right now has me interested, to be perfectly honest, because I would like to unlock more of these items. I'm not necessarily interested in gaining more power, right? I don't care if necessarily that, you know, my RPR Evo has less idle or has more idle sway than your RPR Evo. It doesn't really bother me all that much, but I do want to play with some of the very fun weapon variants, right? And I'm feeding right into Activision's trap here. It makes perfect sense. I want to play with the Type 2 shotgun variant. It sounds like it'd be fun. I've heard on all accounts it's terrible, but I want to play with it because it sounds like it would be fun, right? I want to try the full auto rec. I've seen some videos of it. It looks like it would be fun. I like the idea of taking a burst fire rifle and making it full auto. It looks interesting. I really want to unlock the Ripper variant of the RPR Evo. I've heard it kicks a lot. I heard it's kind of hard to use. Apparently it used to be overpowered before they nerfed it. This was all when I didn't play the game. I don't care. I want to unlock it because the Ripper was my favorite gun in Call of Duty Ghosts. Even though it was a DLC gun, it was my favorite gun in that game. I want to use it here in Infinite Warfare, and as a result, now I'm starting to play the game a little bit more. I'm signing in 2 days in a row now because I want to get my daily login bonus, and also playing a couple of games to unlock some more keys, which hopefully give me some good stuff out of supply drops, which I can then make salvage out of, and then of course, you know, craft this thing up, right? It's an evil system, right? It's making me want to play the game, even though I understand and I don't necessarily agree with how they have the weapon variants in this game. part of me still wants to feed into it. Now, you guys know I don't spend money on supply drops. I told you guys back in Black Ops 3, I will not be spending money on supply drops. I stopped spending money in Black Ops 3. I have not spent any money on Infinite Warfare or Modern Warfare Remastered supply drops. I don't believe in the system, and I believe if you want to be part of the change, you have to actually be part of it, right? You can't spend money and still complain about supply drops if you're actively feeding into it. So I'm personally not feeding into it. I'm using supply drops with in-game currency, of course. If I earn my keys, I spend them on supply drops, but I won't spend any actual money. So I find myself in a situation where I want to play with these new guns and these really cool variants, but I'm going to have to invest a lot more time in the game to actually be able to go ahead and do that, which is not the worst system in the world. And I wonder about the future of Call of Duty. I really do, because in COD 2017, Sledgehammer is going to be back. And remember, their first game, Advanced Warfare, was the first game to actually give us weapon variants in the first place. And 2 of the past 3 games, Advanced Warfare, Infinite Warfare, and Black Ops 3, 2 of the past 3 have had variants. And all 3 of them have had supply drops which contain game-changing content, so we have to know that something is going to be happening with COD 2017. If it's not variants, it's going to be supply drops with actual guns in there. It's going to happen. I wonder what this means for the future of the Call of Duty series. I really do, and I also wonder if people prefer the weapon variant system, because as somebody who's been playing Call of Duty for a very long time, I can tell you I'm not super enticed by camos. I don't really care that much to unlock camos. You know, I'm working towards Red Tiger, and I'm actually really close to Red Tiger on probably like a half a dozen weapons or something like that in Modern Warfare Remastered. Like, I have a lot of guns right on the verge of Red Tiger, but I'm not really so keen on trying to get Exclusion Zone, because it's like I have to grind a lot with weapons I don't necessarily want to mess around with, and it's just a camo at the end of the day when most of the other camos look pretty good anyway. And just, you know, it's one of those things. I'm super excited about camos. I don't care about camos really. And so if you have a system in place like this where you're not getting new weapons per se, but you're getting special looking versions of weapons you already have, which have special quirks and stuff about them, that encourages players to keep playing. And it goes right back to their business model, but business models are in place for a reason. It's a good model for fans at times, because it's going to make you want to continue playing the game. And if you're actively wanting to play the game, if you're having fun while you're playing it, and you're being rewarded while having fun, and you're being rewarded for investing time and or money into the game, is that really a bad thing? Like, it's a very, very complex system. I think a lot of people just say right from the get that, you know, supply drops are the worst thing ever. And I agree, I don't like the randomness of it, but if we can remove the element of supply drops for a moment, just take that out of the conversation, is it a good idea to have these weapon variants that we have in Infinite Warfare? Is that a very good idea? Because it's a small change, but it's a change nonetheless. You cannot deny that some of the epic and legendary variants are better than the common and the rares. It's just the very nature of it. They are better, at least in a lot of situations, but they're not that much better. But they're still fun to work towards, and they add fun little changes to your weapon. Again, like making your burst rifle a full auto rifle, or making your dual-wield assault rifle hybrid thingy, making that have shotgun rounds and stuff like that. Like, there's lots of cool things they can actually do with it, and I have to say I kind of like that aspect of the system. Remove supply drops from it, I kind of like the weapon variant system, so I don't know. I don't know where I stand on this. It's a very complex system. I'd love to hear down there in the comments, what do you think of the Infinite Warfare weapon variant system, and do you like weapon variants in general? Like, if the next Call of Duty game were to have a system similar to Infinite Warfare's weapon variant system, would you think that's a good game? Do you think that would be a good system to have in place? So I'd love to hear about that down there in the comments. I hope you guys all enjoyed this video. More of a discussion than anything, but those are my thoughts on weapon variants here in Call of Duty Infinite Warfare. And of course, I'm very interested to read what you guys think. I actually see a lot of people defending it. A lot of people defend weapon variants, and maybe it's because it actually gives you something to work towards and play for. I mean, as somebody that's played the series for a long time, again, I don't care about camos. Prestiging doesn't give me the same thrill that it used to, you know? I like working towards stuff that can actually change my in-game experience a little bit. And whether that's real weapons or weapon variants, having stuff like that in the game, like it or not, does make it more interesting. So I have to wonder what you guys think about that. I hope you guys all enjoyed the video. Drop me a rating. Hope you guys all have a wonderful day.